I've established a few times now that media composition comprises of three jobs: composer, HOD or head of department, and CEO of the company that is you. And we put them in that order because it very much kind of tracks the evolution of our craft. We first start tinkling the ivories, playing the piano, composing. We then learn how to become a head of department and often rudely understand the importance of being an effective CEO the bad way. Find me a composer who's had his or her first good year only to face ruination a year later, courtesy of the taxman. But before I lose you, it's not just about financial planning. You see, the CEO of us is our future. Now, I don't want to give you the impression that I, as a composer, had all of these bases covered. I just wanted to kind of tinker in my bedroom and found that the growling wolf of the deadline was a convenient way of spurring me on, hence becoming a media composer. Thinking of myself as a boss, as CEO of a company, that company being me making music, that didn't occur until I made a mistake. Amortization, depreciation. The reason why a lot of composers fall foul of the taxman after their first big year is not because they've spent all of their money on equipment. Well, it kind of is actually. The commonly held belief that what you expense can be written off against tax, which it can, but not straight away. If your local taxman thinks the thing that you have bought or expensed is going to be of value next year, the year after, then it wants you to divvy up the tax you can claim on that between those years. Except if you've bought a computer because they're designed to be worthless within a year. The very worst thing you can invest in, if you want to claim it back, is IP. And this is exactly what Paul and I invested in the early days of Spitfire, and why we found ourselves in a sorry state with the taxman. So the cloud for Paul and I in this fable was a gargantuan tax bill, ruinous. The silver lining, I guess, is Spitfire Audio. It simply wouldn't be what it is today had it not been for Paul and I having to take drastic measures in order to save our souls. And I would argue that the root of success of our business is born not of greed, but of necessity. So I was wondering if it would be useful for us to compare both of the businesses I've been involved with. The one of me being a reluctant HOD, an enthusiastic composer, but a reluctant HOD and certainly a totally useless CEO, compared to the business that Paul and I didn't intend to set up, but needed to become very effective CEOs of in order to make it a success or face ruination. I wonder if those comparisons could be of use to us. So I think I can boil my experience with Spitfire down into 5 simple principles of business, starting with that very one that, Spitfire, we didn't really intend to set up a business. And I'm not saying that the first rule should be don't intend to set up your business as a composer. I simply mean placing a monetary goal as your initial kind of motivation for doing it would be the wrong thing. My first rule would be, just be wonderful. Positioning yourself within the marketplace is difficult unless it's either at the top or the bottom. So to aim and to strive to create amazing work, amazing music, is possibly the best starting point. Not making a quick buck, not being a journeyman like myself. I think a great example is a composer called Patrick Johnson, who has bided his time. He's worked out how to earn a living by being an assistant engineer, by working at Spitfire as an editor, whilst just nurturing the most incredible music. And I bet you in the future Patrick Johnson will be an Oscar nominee, nay winner. By being wonderful, you create your own demand. Which leads me to the next rule, and that is be scarce. By definitely deciding to definitely not set up a business, we created something inadvertently, scarcity, which I hear is a really important thing to have in business. It makes you exclusive. To say no, as my friend here reminded me, is to know what you want. To say yes to everything is to really not know what you want. To be unexclusive, a journeyman. I know it sounds counterintuitive, but I promise you, more good has come from no than has come from yes. I maintain that maybe at the beginning of one's career, saying yes to a lot of things is probably worth doing, gaining that experience, notoriety, getting yourself around. But it's picking the time to start saying no, to start making yourself scarce, to start making yourself worth something. In fact, it reminds me of, I don't know, going all the way back to 1997, touring with Peter Andre. And towards the end of the tour, we were in Cardiff and we went for lunch. About 6 of us, with Peter. And I said, "Oh, Peter, aren't you kind of worried about getting mobbed in the street?" And he went, "Oh no, you'll see, that doesn't happen." And we walked down this pedestrianised area of Cardiff, and I saw his fans kind of cowering as they saw him, moving away as if he was kind of a sleeping lion. What was extraordinary is later that night, they put some barriers up so you couldn't touch Peter. And those exact same people were kind of clambering to get over and kind of get a piece of him. It seems the minute you put a boundary up, people want what's on the other side of it. When I say be scarce, I don't mean be invisible or be anonymous. No, the reference to Peter Andre or to maybe someone like Hans Zimmer is to be very, very visible but unobtainable. To inject a sense in your potential clients that they'd be very lucky to have you, or indeed that they're good enough. Their project is worth you gracing them with your presence. The third rule is possibly the most important rule, particularly from the point of view of the CEO of the business, that is you. And that rule is understanding where the value of your business lies and protecting it. Quick story. 4 or 5 years ago, I think nearly 5 years ago now, Paul and I decided that we wanted to bring a third investor on board for Spitfire. This wasn't because we needed the cash, it was to introduce a bit of accountability, a bit of grown-upness. So naturally what we needed to do is value the business. And what was very curious about it was they got to kind of basically sum up all of the work that Paul and I had done to that point. And I've always felt, as things have kind of balanced up, Paul and I have put an equal amount of energy into the business. But Paul is far more about the product and I'm more about the brand. And it was somewhat shocking to me that after all of that work, the independent evaluation-y person-y type, that the brand's worth to the business was 5% compared to that of the most important part of our business, the most tangible part of our business, and that is IP. As a composer, you will build a reputation. As a composer, you will build relationships. As a composer, you'll probably buy a lot of equipment, probably the most tangible thing that you will own. Unfortunately, the latter will devalue. Relationships can pass and move on, and your own reputation can change depending on poor career decisions. You have to work very hard to keep your own personal brand intact. So the most tangible thing that Spitfire had is the IP. It has an ongoing value, not only into the future, but beyond your own lifetime. And the same naturally applies to you as a composer. The prices and fees that most composers are paid are designed to keep you alive whilst you're working on a job, but not necessarily beyond. I suspect that the job you enjoy doing the most of the three that we do is that of being a composer. So producers facilitate you being able to do that on behalf of their project for the time it takes in order to deliver that score. So the fee facilitates your first job and gets in return your second job back to the producer. It is your third job, therefore, that relies on your IP. If you do not respect your IP and protect it, you will not have a business that will be able to support you and your family into the future. And I'm naturally talking about your rights. So if you give your rights away early on in your career, you will not be able to support yourself further down the line. You will simply have to graft away as a jobbing journeyman or journeywoman of a composer, taking job after job after job. If you do not respect and protect your IP, your rights, you will not have a business at the end of it. You will have to keep on working every hour God sends, taking every job that comes in. You won't be scarce and you won't be brilliant. Even though this is my second favourite building in London, I despise this part of my journey more than anything. It is when I kind of rub up against the romance of the notion of living in Edinburgh with the reality of friends that I've just had a drink with going home to their families to spend time with their kids, and I have at least another 4 hours to go. The reason I bring this up is the fourth rule, in my humble opinion, of success is hard work. It's a universal one. It's not unique to my success at Spitfire, it's one I share with my humble success as a composer. The truth of the matter is, you have to put the fucking hours in. The long-term graft that you have to put in, and all I can say, I'm 48 years old now, is put that graft in when you have the energy, capability, and when you're not married, when you don't have kids. That is your opportunity to make the future you thank you. I'm now the future me, and I don't thank you for this particular sector of my job, but it's necessary, because my view is the only absolute guarantee of success is to outwork your competitors. It's like being a boxer and working out when to retire before you get, is it punchy? This ties back into the whole scarcity thing. There needs to be a point where you just go, no. It is important to invest your energies when you have the energy available to you, before it gives you the stroke, before it gives you the heart attack. First three rules, definitely ones that I didn't apply to my life as a composer, but have learned through Spitfire. The last point, working hard, is one that I think I've applied to both. But the most important thing, I believe, the most important rule, I'll continue with this after this announcement, being agreeable, being a lovely person who people love to spend time with, is, I think, a certain route to success, possibly the longest one, the one that doesn't pay off straight away. You know, you look at anyone who has had true longevity, it is really rare for those people to be pricks. Being agreeable not only is agreeable to the people who are around you, but in the long term makes you feel good about yourself. And whilst it is the most benign action you can take in order to build a career, by being agreeable will eventually present you with the most agreeable results. I suspect there's one final point, which is optional, but I've just got to go and check in first. Something happened today. I was, something was taken away from me and 60 million other people, citizenship of Europe. And it wasn't stolen from me. People in this country voted definitely twice that we should strip ourselves of this commitment to a group of people, a community, a common unity. I think it's a terrible shame what's happened today, and I'm sure many of you will differ from my opinion, but nothing for me has been gained, just stuff has been taken away. We can help each other, this community, the piano book community, people who enjoy Spitfire, VI Control, the many different places we can interact, understand each other's common plight are, I think, agreed upon. So wherever you can, I think being part of a community will help find that common unity amongst your sisters and brothers. It is a sad day today, but I hope that it's just so wonderful to be part of this. It's a great help. I don't know how you guys feel. So, as always, please subscribe if you haven't done. Lots more kind of mildly waffly monologues coming up. Ding that bell if you haven't done so far, because that will notify you the next time I put a video up. And one of those for our European cousins, whether it's part of your politics or not, I think it would be nice to just give them a thumbs up and tell them that we love them.